Hey guys, how's everybody? It's been about a month, I think, or so since I did my last video, and I've accumulated quite a bit of records since then. I think I have somewhere around 20-25 records to show. I haven't listened, I think, honestly, to all of these. Some of them are records that I've owned before on CD, and I finally was able to get a vinyl copy. And some of them are new to me. So yeah, some of these albums I know well, others I'm just getting to know. And again, truthfully, I probably haven't even played all of these, okay? So the first, I don't know, 8 or so are flea market finds, okay? So we have Japan, Quiet Life. This is Japan's third album. They were sounding a little more, art pop, new romantic kind of sound, a little Duran Duran-like sounding, although Japan came first. David Sylvian, the lead singer here. I have some of his solo stuff as well, and this stuff's a little less punky than the earlier Japan stuff, but been wanting this record for a while. Continuing with the flea market finds, Grace Slick. This is Grace Slick with the Great Society, I think it is. This is a live record, and I think there are 2 volumes to this show, which is from, I believe, '66 at the Matrix, which I think is in LA. So Grace Slick, the Great Society. There are 2 versions, or there are 2 songs on here that she later did with Jefferson Airplane. Obviously, the big hits, White Rabbit and Somebody to Love. And the versions on here, to be quite honest, are equally as good as far as I'm concerned. So really happy to get this Grace Slick album. We have the debut album by the Fun Boy 3. The Fun Boy 3, who I've shown before, are the 3 vocalists that were in the Specials, and they broke out of the Specials to form this band. This is not a ska band. It's definitely sort of new wave-ish pop kind of stuff, but really happy to get this. I had their second album, so now that gives me their. I think they only made 2 albums, quite frankly. Simple Minds, Suns and Fascination. This is an early Simple Minds album. By early, I mean it's before Don't You Forget About Me and Alive and Kicking, when they really sort of broke out commercially. This has one of their early big songs, Love Song. This is very much different, I would say, than the later Simple Minds. This definitely has more sort of a dancey kind of feel to it. But love this album. And then a band that I've been looking for quite a while, the Flying Burrito Brothers. This is a comp. This is called, I can't really read this font here. Close Up the Honky Tonks. It's a compilation, Flying Burrito Brothers, 68 to 72. The album that I really love is the first album, Gilded Place of Sin, or Gilded Palace of Sin, I think that's called. And side 1 is completely dedicated to that album. Some of my favorite Burrito Brothers tracks: Hot Burrito number 2, Do Right Woman, Wheels, Sin City, Christine's Tune, and Hot Burrito number 1. Also an excellent version of Wild Horses on here that was, I guess it was written by Graham Parsons and Keith Richards, or maybe Keith Richards wrote it. And it also appeared on a Stones album as well. So my first Flying Burritos on vinyl, double LP. Chuck Berry, the London Sessions. So I have, I think, a Muddy Waters London Sessions, which is, I guess, blues or rock and roll guys kind of playing with some of the big names in that English scene in the late 60s. On this particular one, Chuck Berry is paired up with Ian McLagan from the Small Faces and Kenny Jones from the Small Faces. They're on the one side. So this is pretty good. I think there's a Howling Wolf one. Actually, there's a Howling Wolf and a Muddy Waters, and I can't really remember which of those two that I have. I'll have to double check. And then the last of the flea market finds, we have Falco. This is called Falco 3. This is the album with the big hit Rock Me Amadeus. It also has the other hit Vienna Calling. This is not as good as their, I guess it was their previous album that had De Commissar, I think is how you say. That particular single, I have that, a 45 of that. That's the album that I'm really looking for from Falco, but I was happy to get this as well. Now it's a bunch of online finds. The Moody Blues, BBC, 67 to 70. This is a triple LP set. I've had this on CD for many years, and they finally released it on vinyl. Triple LP, colored vinyl, light blue, dark blue, and yellow. The pressing sounds great on this. The only negative thing that I'll say about this is there are quite a few songs that are repeated 2 or 3 times. I could have really done without that. The versions are quite similar, at least to my ear. So I could have done maybe with a 2 LP set with some of those repeats taken out. But these BBC sessions, I've got quite a few of them now, and I'll show another one I think later on in this set of finds. I'm really happy with the way it sounds, and it has like the I guess it's the announcers or the DJs speak over, sometimes interviewing the bands and different things like that. But you can never go wrong, I think, with late 60s to 70 early Moody Blues. Okay. Another band that I've been really into lately is Guided by Voices. This is their most popular album, B1000, back from the 90s. Guided by Voices, led by Robert Pollard. I don't know, alt rock kind of stuff. Their heyday was definitely in the 90s. They're still going today with a different lineup. From the stuff that I've heard, it sounds as good. The thing about Guided by Voices is Robert Pollard is very prolific. He puts out multiple albums a year. Back in the 90s, I think this was the only album that came out sort of early to mid 90s. But again, very prolific, and these albums, this is a single album but 20 songs, so they're very short, very melodic, sort of a melodic alternative Beatles he's been compared to, and I'd have to agree to that to a certain extent. This is definitely my favorite. I don't know all of their stuff, obviously he's got so many records, I don't even know what the final count is, but based on what I've heard, this is easily my favorite Guided by Voices album. You can never have enough Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix, Rainbow Bridge soundtrack. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but sometimes you think you're buying something and it doesn't turn out to be what you thought it was. That's what happened here. Long story short, Rainbow Bridge soundtrack. I thought this was a live album. I thought it was going to be the Rainbow Bridge performance. It's not that. It's the studio versions of, I guess, some of the songs that he performed at this concert. This is with Mitch Mitchell on drums and Billy Cox on bass. Dolly Dagger. What else is on here? It's all stuff after the original Experience band, so it's got a little bit of funk to it. Still worth having. I have most of these songs on First Ray. What's it called? First Rays of the New Rising Sun, double LP. Some of them are also from, I think it's called Southern South Delta. Those were sort of compilation LPs of some of the posthumous Hendrix releases. So there's a version again on here of Star Spangled Banner, which, you know what, I can do without. I've got that on the Woodstock triple LP set. But this is great stuff. This is up there, I still think, with the original Experience albums. You can never go wrong with Jimmy. And another Guided by Voices, a double live LP, which is, as you can probably tell from the cover, from the Austin City Limits series, double LP. There is, I think, about 15... There's over 30 tracks here. Again, very much typical Guided by Voices, many short songs. They never wear out their welcome. And this is from the early 2000s. On the final tour of that particular lineup of Guided by Voices, they then obviously reunited later on, about 8 to 10 years later. So this is a nice sort of greatest hits live, I would say, for Guided by Voices if you don't want to get into each of the individual albums. Another double best of, Dinosaur Jr. This is called Ear Bleeding Country. And that's what you might experience if you ever go see Dinosaur Jr. live. While not as loud as My Bloody Valentine, definitely up there with them. This is an album, a compilation that was released in the late 90s, I believe, when Jay Mascis was the sole member of Dinosaur Jr. I mean, he had a couple other guys with him, but it wasn't the original lineup with Lou Barlow and Murph. So that original lineup is quite underrepresented on here. There's only about, I think, 5 tracks, all of side 1. That's from that original lineup. It does cover the 90s Dinosaur Jr. period quite well, and that's the main reason why I got it. I got into Dinosaur Jr. a little late, around the Without a Sound album, which is the album that had Feel the Pain. That's on here. There's about 2 songs or so from each of the 90s albums, which is the main reason why I got this. Some of those 90s albums, or I think all of them, are being reissued. Quite a high price. I think they're going for a little over $50 to $60 right now, which is kind of unreasonable as far as I'm concerned. So this will do me until those go down in price. Another alternative 90s band that's still going today, but their popularity, I think, was definitely strongest in the 90s. Yo La Tengo from New Jersey, I believe. The trio that's led by husband-wife combo Ira Kaplan and Georgia Hurley. There's some noisy guitar on here. There's some droning keyboards. The vocals are probably about 70% Ira and 30% Georgia. This is probably a good place to start for Yo La Tengo, definitely, with Painful is the name of the album. Another BBC Sessions, this one is for the Yardbirds. This is 65 to 68. I believe this includes all 3 of the Yardbirds' famous guitarists, Clapton, Beck, and Page, each with their own separate stints with the band. It's a nice cross-section of material over their career. Like I said, from 65 to 68. This is really good. I would say this is better than the Moody Blues BBC Sessions that I showed earlier. And Dean just finished his top 100 over at Grandma's Handbag. He did his top 10 I think this past week. But one album that he showed, I think it was somewhere in the, I don't know, 20 to 40 range, was John Cale, Paris 1919. When he showed that, I'm like, man, I really got to get this album. I've been wanting to get this for a while, and I found a good deal online in pretty good condition. There's a little bit of a corner munching over here, but other than that, it plays well and it's in pretty good condition. John Cale, of course, from the Velvets, and this is probably arguably his top rated solo album. an album that I've owned on CD for many, many years. One of my favorite albums from the 90s. The Charlatans, Between 10th and 11th. This is the Charlatans' second album. It's my second favorite Charlatans album after the debut Some Friendly. It still has that baggy sound of theirs, the Manchester scene. The big track off of this is the song Weirdo, but I love the entire album. Like I've been wanting to get this for quite some time, and an iconic banana cover for them that I've always loved. A new release from this year, we have the Pixies. This is called Beneath the Eyrie, I think it's pronounced. Beneath the Eyrie, a really nice soft feel to this. This, of course, is the Pixies without Kim Deal on bass and vocals. This is pretty good. It's never going to match the original run of 4 albums by the Pixies, but I'd rather have this than, say, a Frank Black solo album. Some argue this is probably very close to a Frank Black solo album, but I think having Joey Santiago on guitar and Paz on bass, who's replacing Kim Deal with the bass playing and doing some background vocals, I think she's excellent on this. It must have been a difficult job to replace Kim Deal, but I think she's doing great. Again, not as good as the first 4 albums, but not much is. My Who collection was incomplete. I needed one more album. I finally gave up looking for it out in the wild, and I went for the reissue because it went down around $20. The Who, a quick one, their second album. What's on here? Boris the Spider, a quick one title track. So Sad About Us, I think being the main tracks off of this. The Who have a new album coming out first week of December. I've already got that on order. They've released a couple of tracks on YouTube. They sound pretty good. They're obviously not as, don't be expecting Who's Next, or Tommy or Quadrophenia or anything like that. But based on what I heard, one song, Ball and Chain, I forget that the second song that just came out yesterday, something about the music will fade. Take a look, take a listen. I think it's pretty good. A release from 2018 that I was a little late on, The Breeders. All Nerve is the name of this album. The Breeders, led by Kim Deal, as I mentioned formerly, from the Pixies. This album from 2018 reunites the original lineup, not the original lineup, but the most popular, I guess, lineup, most successful lineup of the Pixies, the same lineup that made their breakthrough album, The Last Splash, the album with Cannonball and Divine Hammer. So that lineup is reunited on here. Truth be told, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the Pixies are really the Deal sisters, Kim and Kelly Deal, plus whoever else they want to get to play with them. But this is a pretty good return to form, I would say, for the Pixies. I didn't get all their releases in the intervening years in between from Last Splash. I got some of them on CD, but I did lose a little bit of interest, so much so that when this came out in 2018, I didn't jump on it right away, but I saw it for less than $20, so I finally decided to get it, and it's pretty good. It's not Last Splash good, but it is still very good. A new release from this year of an old album, Nirvana, double live album called Live and Loud. As you can see from the graphics on there, this is from the In Utero tour. Sort of a greatest hits set, I would say, from Nirvana. The only thing that's really missing on here is Smells Like Teen Spirit. I know some people don't like that track. I happen to love that track. But all the other big songs, I would say, are on here. All Apologies, Come As You Are, Lithium. So I had to get this for sure. Firehose. This is the band that was started up by Mike Watt and I think his name was George Hurley, maybe, who were the bass player and drummer of the Minutemen, with along with D. Boone. So when D. Boone passed away, these guys formed a band, and it was Firehose. This is their first album. This is called Raging Full On. I've had this on CD for many years. It's not something that I play quite often, and I don't really know why, because this is excellent. If you like rock bass playing, this is sort of a rock funk mixture. Mike Watt's bass is right up in the mix at the front. It's a trio. The lead singer and guitarist is a guy named Ed from Ohio, who was a big Minutemen fan. And he kind of encouraged George and Mike to continue on after D. Boone's death. So kudos to him. And this is excellent. Amazing bass player, high in the mix. Love it. Pink Floyd, Obscured by Clouds, one of the remaining Pink Floyd albums that I need. I need the More soundtrack. This is a remaster from 2016, which I'm told is the best remaster to get of the Pink Floyd albums. I have some 2011 ones. I'm not unhappy with those, but this sounds amazing. I've had this on CD as well for many years. Again, not something that I play quite often. I believe in the discography, this is the album just before Dark Side of the Moon, and it definitely has some similarities to that for sure. A reggae grail for me, the Gladiators, Proverbial Reggae. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but this cover has been kind of pieced together, where someone cut out the cover square on the front and on the back, and then very carefully taped it to a cardboard cover underneath. They did quite a good job. This hasn't been reissued, so I was more than happy to get this for a decent price. The vinyl sounds great, except for the odd pop here and there, but nothing that's gonna ruin the enjoyment of the record. This is the Gladiators' second album. Their first album, Trenchtown Mix-Up, which I got recently, probably in the last 6 months, is definitely one of my favorite reggae albums of all time. And this one's pretty close up there. I would say those first two Gladiator albums definitely rivals anything that Bob Marley put out, in my opinion. This is sort of like your late 70s, when roots reggae was really at its finest, in my opinion. Just a couple more. The Flaming Groovies Now. This is the follow-up album to my favorite Flaming Groovies album, Shake Some Action, which was from '76. The lead singer on here is, I can't remember the guy's name, but it's Cyril Jordan. He was the guitarist back in the early 70s when they made their, I think, most popular album, Teenage Head. And then when the lead singer left the band, Roy Loney or something like that, Cyril took over on lead vocals as well. So again, the follow-up to Shake Some Action, and this is quite good. Going back to the early 70s, the Flaming Groovies, this is a live in studio album where they were rehearsing for the tour in front of a bunch of friends in the studio. So it definitely has a live feel, but also is some the good studio sound on here as well. So this does have the original Roy Loney, on lead vocals. And finally, the Electric Prunes. This is called Mass in F minor. This is the Electric Prunes, I believe, third album. In name only. By this point, the band had really been completely replaced. The management took over the name of the band, and really this album is, from what I've heard and read and listened to, this is obviously a reissue from this original rock classics series. This is a bunch of studio musicians that were put together by David Axelrod, the producer, who also got a bunch of, I guess, Gregorian chant type vocals on here that mix quite well. So even though, I mean, obviously I wasn't fooled thinking this is an Electric Prunes album, but certainly definitely worthwhile to have this. Okay, that's it. Thanks a lot for watching.